Welcome everyone, my name is David Cantu, and on this video we will go over how to complete and submit the new FAFSA form. That is the 2024-2025 FAFSA form. If you are a parent or a student, then you need to watch this video up until the end so that you know how to complete both the student section and the parent section with all the new changes to the FAFSA. If it's your first time watching this channel, I want to welcome you, and I also want to ask you to subscribe and to like this video so that this information can reach out more people like you who need to know college admissions strategies and scholarship search tips. What we're gonna watch on this demo is a demonstration that the Department of Education did a couple of months back. So I'll share my screen. You'll be able to see what the steps are to complete the FAFSA, and I will jump in, make some comments, fast forward in some parts that don't apply specifically to everyone. But without further ado, let's go ahead and see this tutorial and start completing and submitting the new FAFSA.
I do want to point out before we get started that this website is still a work in progress. And so the text that you see on each page is still subject to change. But for the most part, what you see here is very much what you will be seeing when we launch the application in December.
Again, it will look just like this or a little bit similar. But yeah, this is the 2024-2025 FAFSA form.
To the studentaid.gov website, and I have chosen to start a new FAFSA form. So I will be taken to the new FAFSA homepage, which you can see here. And from this page, which includes information about deadlines, as well as a video, some frequently asked questions, and some general FAFSA information, I'm going to select to start a new form. Now at this point, I need to identify the role that I'll be playing in this FAFSA. Am I starting the FAFSA as a student or as a parent? And as I mentioned, I'm going to be starting the application as the student, so I will select student and then continue.
Again, if you're a student, that's where you're going to select. If you're a parent, you'll select parent, but they're going to cover both examples in this video.
And I'll now be taken through a series of pages that we refer to as onboarding. Basically, we are providing some basic information about what to expect with the FAFSA experience. And on this first screen, we're defining what the FAFSA actually is. On the next screen, we talk about contributors. Contributors are a new term for the 24-25 application cycle. And a contributor can be a parent spouse, student, or a student spouse. So there's information about what a contributor actually is and some information about how to invite a contributor in the event that one is required. We also provide information on this page about documentation that you might need in order to complete the questions on the FAFSA form.
So this is the same as other years. You will need these documents right here. And as far as contributors, she'll go over examples on how you can invite contributors to complete the FAFSA or to help you complete the FAFSA.
Continuing from here takes us to the what to expect page. This gives a general estimate of how long the application process will take and provides some general information about new requirements, such as the requirements for each contributor to provide consent for their federal tax information to be transferred from the IRS into the FAFSA form. And the last of the onboarding pages provides information about what will happen next. So here we're letting them know approximately how long it will take for the form to process, what will happen after processing is complete. We'll calculate the student aid index and send the FAFSA submission summary information to the student. And then schools will use the information that they receive in order to determine eligibility at their school, and then they will communicate that information to the student.
The FAFSA will take about 1 to 3 days to be processed after you complete it and submit it to the universities in your list. Then something new to know is that the EFC is no longer. Now they call it the Student Aid Index. If you're a member of Best College Aid, then you should know what the EFC is. But basically, after you complete your financial aid form, your FAFSA, your CSS profile, if you have to complete the CSS profile too, we'll talk about that later in this video, you will get an SAI number, and this number will basically tell you how much financial aid you could receive if you are accepted. So after you are done submitting the application,
in our onboarding, and from here, I'm going to select Start the FAFSA form in order to start answering the questions. So on this first screen, we have our basic student identity information and contact information. And all of the information that's displayed here has been pulled directly from the student, Raya Tran, my FSA ID account. So when I logged into studentaid.gov with my FSA ID, all of this information about me carried into the application. So my identity and my email address and phone number is.
So basically, once you sign in with your FSA ID, this will automatically pop up. Now, if you want to update this information, you can click on account settings right here. You can edit your permanent mailing address down below in case it was incorrect or it needs to be updated.
And the next screen is capturing my state of legal residence. You can see that the state is pre-filled. That is pre-filled with the state that's part of my mailing address, but I can change it. And then we have the state of legal residence date question, and you can see the way that it is phrased. It's including the state of legal residence in the questions so that it's clear what we're actually asking for here.
So enter that information according to your state. This is just an example. Again, this is a made up name of the one that you see in this demo. But now you have to provide consent or be ineligible for federal aid, right? So here, for both the student and the parent section, both parties have to provide consent. Otherwise, they'll be ineligible for federal student aid. Read that information. It's updated. Also notice that you will need your 2022 tax return information. We are recording this in 2023, so we will be completing the 2024, 2025. If you're a senior, you will need tax information from 2 years prior. There's some frequently asked questions. If you have specific questions, you can also go down below. You could reach out to someone in the Department of Education, or of course, if you're a member of Best College Aid, reach out to us. Now, they have this section called Personal Circumstances where you can explain anything that will help them determine your eligibility for federal student aid. And let's go ahead and see what she will say.
And so instead of calling these questions the dependency questions, we're referring to them as personal circumstances because in some cases, they're not actually being used to determine dependency.
Yeah, they will determine dependency with these questions to see if you're eligible or ineligible for federal aid as a student. Or to see how much you could get if you're dependent or independent. So yeah, just let's continue.
Year-old student, I'm already independent, but these questions will still display for me. So before each section in the form, we have an introductory page that sets some context for the kinds of questions that will be asked in that section. And that's what you see here. And the first question we have is asking about my marital status. So one of the changes for the 24-25 year is that we have separated every marital status out into its own individual response option. I'm going to select single, never married, and continue.
Most students will select the same thing.
And this next screen is asking information about my college or career school plans. So this first question is asking about my grade level. This question is used for two purposes. One is as a determination of independency. If I were to select this last option, then I would be an independent student. But it's also used to help determine loan limits. And we'll use this information to provide expected loan limits on the output document that we send to the student. I'm going to indicate that I am a first-year freshman. And then the next question is asking if I already have a bachelor's degree, which as a dependent student, I don't. But in the event I were to say yes, an additional question would display asking me if I'm pursuing an initial teaching certification at the elementary or secondary level. The purpose of that question is to allow a school to award Pell in the event that I am otherwise eligible for it, aside from already having a bachelor's degree. But again, I'm a dependent student, first-year freshman, so I'm going to indicate no, I don't have a bachelor's degree.
Most students will select first-year freshman if you're a senior in high school. Obviously, if you're renewing the FAFSA, you will select second year or other undergraduate year and beyond.
So here we have a collection of questions that are very similar to questions that we have been asking for many years now.
This is the same as other years. You'll just have to select if you are part of the armed forces, a veteran, if you were in foster care. Again, read this at your own pace. This is very specific. I'm not going to go over each of them, but none of them apply. It's what she selected. This will be the case for most students.
This is a new, no, this is not a new question. This is a question that previously displayed on the online form only and not on the paper form. And it's just generally asking if the student is unaccompanied and either homeless or self-supporting and at risk of being homeless. But as a dependent student, I'm going to say no, and then I'll continue from here. This next question is asking if the student has any unusual circumstances that would likely lead to the financial aid administrator considering whether the student qualifies for a dependency override. Just as I explained on the previous screen, if the student answers yes to this question, they will be considered a provisionally independent student and go through that same process that I just described. But in my case, because I'm dependent, I'm going to say no.
And most students, if your parents filed their taxes and claimed you as their dependent, you will be a dependent student. And if this applies to you, then you have a sort of a waiver that will make you provisionally independent student, just like she mentioned. And that's in a very specific case.
And continue from here. And so this is the screen that tells me the results of my dependency determination. So I have the option to indicate here that I want to apply for an unsubsidized loan only, but as a dependent student who is planning to have my parents contribute to this form, I'm going to say no. Just a note on this page that we do have multiple versions of this page. So what you're seeing is the version for a dependent student. If I were determined to be an independent student, there would be different information here, and this question about the unsubsidized loan only would not display. And also, if I were identified as a provisionally independent student, I would have different language here. And
so just know that based on your specific circumstances, this could look a little bit different, but for the most part, 90% of students, just to make up a number, will be dependent students, and independent students should select no if they want to apply for subsidized loans as well. Again, this is just to maximize your financial aid package, and not all loans are bad. I could have a whole presentation on loans, but let's continue.
Takes me to what we're referring to as the Who's My Parent Wizard. So this is an interactive worksheet that helps the student to determine which parent or parents they should be planning to include on this FAFSA form. So you can see that we start by defining what we need by a parent. It's the student's legal, biological, or adoptive. The first question that's asked is whether the parents are married to each other.
So select whatever applies to your household. If they are married, then you will need to provide information for both parents. If they're not married, then you have to specify if they live together. If they live together, then you'll have to provide more information. If they don't live together, then you have to specify if one parent provided more financial support than the other parent over the past 12 months. This is just to get a better idea of who will contribute to the student's financial support when they're in college, or who will pay for college. And again, this could be very specific, so I'm not going to talk about every single scenario, but just fill it out to whatever applies to you.
To provide information for the parent and step-parent. And if I say that parent hasn't remarried, I'll be told to provide information just for that parent that I identified. So in this case, I'm going to say yes, and then I will continue.
In this part of the FAFSA, then you will invite contributors to complete and submit the FAFSA. I'm going to fast forward here because it's very simple. All you have to do is enter the information about the parent or parents that you have identified on the previous page, and they will email them on your behalf. So you don't have to go out of your way to email them their login link and the instructions. You see right there, that person, Jane Smith, who is the parent of the person filling out this demonstration, will get an invite sent to their email, the one you provide right here. And you just have to complete their first name, last name, date of birth, so their social security number. If they don't have one, then I suggest you reach out to someone from the Department of Education. If they don't have one, you can also select my parent doesn't have a social security number. So select that before you reach out to anyone, and then you'll get instructions on what to do. enter their email address, make sure that it is correct. And let's see what else she has to say about this part of the FAFSA.
Here. And now we're moving into the student demographics section.
All right, so we just completed the personal circumstances section. Now we're moving into the section 2, demographics. There's only 5 sections. If you count the signature, it's really 4. That's just about the student. Then the parent, which we'll see a demo on what it looks like on the parent's end. We'll have to complete the FAFSA, but let's continue with the student's demographics section.
So we start the student demographics section with questions asking about the student's gender and whether they're transgender.
These questions do not affect eligibility for federal student aid. So just enter whatever applies to the student. If you're a male, female, non-binary, prefer not to answer, transgender, all that. In this section, you have to answer questions about the student's race and ethnicity. So make sure you select that, and whatever applies to the student, please select it. Now you have to answer questions about the student's citizenship status. If you're a U.S. citizen, a U.S. national, an eligible non-citizen, or if you're not a U.S. citizen or eligible U.S. citizen, remember that only a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, or eligible non-U.S. citizen can submit the FAFSA. So if you do not qualify for the FAFSA, then I suggest you reach out to the schools directly. Make sure that you complete the list of universities before you complete the FAFSA. That way you can see what the requirements are. Again, if you're a member of Best College Aid, you have access to a step-by-step tutorial where I teach you how to find a specific list of colleges that can help students and families just like yourself. So that's the name of the game here at Best College Aid. That's what we teach families inside the program. And if you're interested in learning more about what Best College Aid includes, at the end of this video, again, I will tell you more about how you can join and become a member. But let's see what she has to say in this section.
And report my citizenship status. If I indicate that I'm an eligible non-citizen, then I will enter my A number here. I'll continue. And here we're asking about the parent's education status. So did either of the student's parents attend or complete college?
Now select whatever applies to your household.
Where I'm asked if if I have a parent that was killed in the line of duty. I'm going to say no and continue. And here's where I'll be asked about my high school completion status. So the response options are pretty much the same as prior years. However, if I choose state recognized high school equivalent, then I will be asked to indicate the type of equivalent that I received, as well as the state from which I received it. I'm going to indicate high school diploma so that we can take a look at the high school.
Most students will select high school diploma, and then you have to search for the high school. And this new interface of the FAFSA, it's very similar to the other one. It's a little bit better. Now you actually have access to more high schools. In this example, she found her high school. Continue. You have to confirm the high school in case you made a mistake. And once again, once you're ready, select continue so that they can add it to the FAFSA form.
So now we're moving into the finances section. Now, if you remember at the very beginning, I did provide my consent for the IRS to transfer my federal tax information directly into my FAFSA form. If I had declined, then I would be given another opportunity here to change my mind, because here is where my consent or lack of consent is really important, because here is where we are collecting the information from the tax return. If I haven't provided my consent, then I'll have to manually enter all of that information.
That is why it's important to give consent before we start completing the FAFSA. In that first section of special circumstances categories, it will ask you if you want to give consent, say yes, and it will make this process much, much easier. As you can see, there are only a few questions that she'll have to answer based on the IRS information that she transferred. And let's see what the questions are. I'll fast forward through these since they're very specific, and it's just an example for this made up student that we see here on top.
Required to answer based on the conditions that I've met and the fact that the IRS directly transferred my federal tax information. So just these two questions, the first of which is required for us to ask, but optional for the student to report. and then the last question, which is the foreign earned income exclusion. So I'm just going to go ahead and enter a 0 for that, and then I will continue from here.
For any reason, you have to put 0 because there are no foreign earned income earned, for example. Don't be afraid of just putting a 0 or leaving it blank if it's optional as well. If you're not sure, do answer this with honesty. If you're not sure, reach out to someone, get help. This is very delicate information. The most important thing is that you are honest when you are filling out the FAFSA.
Now, if I hadn't provided consent, or if I provided consent, but the IRS was not able to provide my tax information, then I would have some additional questions that I would be asked on a different screen to determine if I was a tax filer or not. And then this screen, if I was a tax filer, would have many, many, many more questions on it. But anything that we receive directly from the IRS as federal tax information, not only do we hide the answer to the question, but we hide the question itself. So you can see it's a much shorter screen than what people saw previously when they used the IRS data retrieval.
This is way better. It makes it easier, and hopefully everyone now is completes and submit the FAFSA. Here we move on to the student assets section. Just add any current total of cash, savings, and checkings accounts balances. If you have 0, then put 0. If you have something, put something. As of the moment that you're filling out the form, you could technically apply some techniques to improve your odds of winning federal aid and scholarships. I won't go over these techniques on this video. We will do that in the official FAFSA tutorial inside the Best College Aid course, but answer this with honesty and also add the net worth of businesses and investments in funds that the student may have. A lot of people will not have anything there. So let's see what she does here in this example.
0s here, and then continue.
Just put 0s in all that in this example.
With the financial section.
That was short thanks to the fact that we gave consent in the beginning of the FAFSA form. The IRS transferred that information, so there were not many questions that student had to answer. Now we're going to select the colleges and universities that we want the FAFSA to send the information to. So this will help you avoid sending information one university at a time. It will be done automatically, similar to how the Common App standardizes the forms and the applications and then sends them to the universities. It's very similar to that with the FAFSA, but let's move on to selecting the universities. And as you will see, this is very similar to how you select the high school that you attended.
Increased the number of schools that a student can list on their FAFSA form from 10 to 20.
Now you can put up to 20 universities instead of 10. Before, it used to be a headache if you wanted to go back and add more universities to send the FAFSA to. Again, if you're a member of Best College Aid, we can help you create a personalized list of colleges. That's the most important part in the process. But to select the colleges and universities, I will speed this up so that you can see. You first start with the state. If you want to search them by the school name, if you have the code, you can add the code here on the right, but you can do this process manually just like she's doing. She's selecting Lehigh, Rhodes College. Those are some great universities, by the way. Let's speed this up a little more. She only selected a couple for the purpose of this example, but this part is important. I'll let her explain it.
My college selections, and it's basically just summarizing the list of colleges that I selected. Obviously, these aren't the same colleges that I selected, but that's because this is a prototype and it's smart, but not quite that smart yet. What I do want to point out is the text in this green box, and this will vary depending on the state of legal residence that the students selected. For some states, the order in which the colleges are listed does matter. For some states, you need to have like a state institution in the first, 3 positions or something like that. For most states, the order doesn't matter. But previously, we required you to actively look at the rules for the different states to determine if order mattered for you. Now, what we'll be doing is providing those instructions directly on this page depending on the state of legal residence that you chose. So if you chose a state where the order does matter, then you'll have the up-down arrows and you'll be able to change the order here. And if you chose a state where the order doesn't matter, you won't get these up-down arrows because the order doesn't matter. And so basically you'll just submit in the same order in which you selected the schools. I'm going to continue from this screen.
So that was important. Some states might have specific requirements where if you want to apply for state aid, then you have to sort them by order, by specific order.
And now we have an opportunity to review the information that was provided throughout the form. So you can see that for each section, we have the opportunity to expand it.
You can expand each section so that you can get a better view if everything's correct. Now she's going to explain how the contributors need to complete the FAFSA. So in this scenario, it was both parents, Alcina and Travis Tran, different names from what we saw earlier. This is just a demo, remember. As you can see, the status, it says that the invite was sent, but it needs to say completed. So let's go ahead and sign and complete.
Section where I'll be providing my signature. So I have a summary of, all of the same general stuff we've communicated in the past. I promise I'm not lying about anything. Everything that I've reported here is accurate, all of that stuff. I'm going to indicate that I agree to the terms outlined.
Make sure you select the box. It's going to say your name and then click sign. Read the information so that you're 100% sure that you're understanding what submitting this document means. And that is the student section. As you can see, it says congratulations, you're almost there, but the parent contributors need to complete their information.
My signature are all bundled up and waiting until my parents come in to complete their section. And once the entire application is complete, that's when submission will be allowed. So this is letting me know that my section is complete, and it lets me know next steps and things that I should be aware of. One other thing that I want to point out is that, as I mentioned previously several times, every contributor is required to provide consent. In the event that I, as the student who have completed my own section, wants to manually enter my parents' information, I can do that. It's not recommended, because my eligibility will not be calculated because my parent's consent and signature will be missing. But if my parent is unable to come in and provide their information, then I can select this link and manually enter my parent's information and then submit the form. And it will process, but it will process as a rejected transaction. In this case, though, I have a very cooperative parent, and that's Alcina. And so at this point, I'm going to turn things over to Kim Wells, who's going to walk us through the process of completing the parent section.
So it is important that the parent helps the student complete the FAFSA form. And as she explained, if a parent does not help the student complete the form, it will just make the process harder, and it could affect the student's odds of earning federal student aid. So parents, help out your students, and let's see what the information looks like from the parent/contributors end. This is the email that we'll see.
As you mentioned, my name is Kim Wells, and I'm going to be walking us through the parent portion of Raya Tran's application. So you can see here that what I'm showing is the email that the parent that I, as Alcina, would have received once Raya had identified me in her FAFSA form as the parent that she wanted to send the invite to. So she would have provided my information, including the email address. And like Misty mentioned, once she's selected to send the invite, that happens automatically at that time. So that would send this email invite to me. And then I would hopefully soon at some point look at my email, and this is just a sample of what the email might look like. So it's an email basically explaining that Raya can't be eligible as a contributor, and so I need to help complete her FAFSA form by completing my section. So a couple things that I'd like to point out about this email are, first of all, there's a big blue login button here. So as Misty mentioned, everybody who is going to be a contributor to a student's FAFSA form will need to have their own FSA ID, username, and password. And so I'll show you in a minute when I select the login button what happens there. But a couple other things that I wanted to point out are a couple of help topics that would be important when the parent gets this email. So the first one is this link here that's right after the don't recognize Raya question. So this would be a help topic where if for some reason, let's say Raya had inadvertently entered the wrong email address or something, and so someone accidentally got the email and they didn't know who Raya was, then by selecting this help topic here, they would be able to get instructions for what they would do in that circumstance. And then the other one that I wanted to draw your attention to is closer to the bottom. And this is a section here where it says can't find Raya's form. And from there, what that would be if someone tried to log in as they were invited. They understand who Raya is, like it's my daughter, I know who she is. I go in and I try to log in, but when I log in, my information isn't tied to Raya's form. And so this help article explains what people should do in that circumstance, how they can get that resolved. And so those are two important things that parents are going to want to be on the lookout for when they get their invite email. So at this point, then I'm going to scroll back up and choose the login button here.
If that applies to you, make sure you select that link that she mentioned. Here, you have to enter the parent's FSA ID in able to log in and complete and sign the form. So again, more information, you can accept or decline the invitation. For the purpose of this demo, we will obviously accept the invitation. If you decline it, it will tell you, hey, are you sure you want to decline? And there is a menu where it tells you to reconsider declining the invitation. You shouldn't decline it, especially if your son or daughter wants help or needs help completing this form. She'll select accept invitation. And again, by accepting this invitation, you are helping out your student.
Then we will start the process of helping Raya complete the FAFSA form. So this first page here is just explaining to the parent that you've entered Raya's form, just giving some information about the fact that we need the parent's information in order for Raya to be eligible for federal student aid, and that, of course, the parent can save the form and come back to it later.
Some frequently asked questions. In case you have any concerns, you can open up the down arrow menu to see each of these questions. Let's continue. Same video. What is the FAFSA form? If you're a member of Best College Aid, you have access to videos where we explain this ourselves. Here in the FAFSA form, you can also have access to similar videos. This is the same onboarding section that we saw earlier, the 4 steps. So it should take 1 hour. Actually, it should take less time because the student already selected the university. So it should take about 30 minutes, especially if you link your IRS to the FAFSA form, which we'll do when we give consent in the first section. Again, when you use your FSA ID, information will automatically show up here in the parent identity information section. If you need to edit, again, just click on the account settings link. If you need to edit your permanent mailing address, you can do it right there. It should let you. Let's continue. Now, here is where we want to provide consent so that the information from your federal tax returns can go directly into the FAFSA. We did this earlier when we went over how to do it for your student. There are some frequently asked questions as well. You want to approve and start the parent demographics section.
The first thing that we start with is the parent marital status. So here they're going to select the marital status that is applicable for them. So in our case, we know that the parents are married. So we're going to choose the married option here. And this is the one place where it
just select whatever applies to your household.
Additional option of unmarried and both legal parents living together. In our case, that is not their situation. They are married and not separated. So that's the option that we choose here. And then we choose the continue button. From here, we are collecting the the parent's state of legal residence. So I'm going to choose the down arrow here, and I'll just choose California. And then you'll see, just like for the student, then we require the month and the year for the parent when they became a legal resident of that state. So they would fill in that information, and then they would select the continue.
Great. Now we're in the parents' finance section. As you saw, and let me go back a little. There's only 3 sections. Again, if we count the signature section, which is just a quick review. So it should take a shorter time for parents to complete this form than it did for the students. But we recommend that the parents help the students out because there is some information that could be delicate. So again, just 3 sections. And let's move on to the financial section for the parents.
First question that the parents receive are whether or not that they received any federal benefits in basically here, the parent is going to answer whether or not they received any of these federal benefits, them or anybody in their family, for any of these programs. And they would indicate which ones they had received.
So if your student received free or reduced lunch, Medicaid, any credits, supplemental nutrition assistance programs, select any of them that apply or select none of these if they don't apply. And this will be very specific to each individual family. Now we will talk about the tax filing status.
Know whether or not the parent filed a joint tax return with their current spouse. So if they indicate yes, then they would move forward. If they indicate no here, then they would also be able to move forward, and that then informs the questions that we would ask for them subsequent to this page. There are 2 other questions that may display on this page for the parent, depending on their circumstances. The other 2 questions that may display here include whether they've filed or will file a Form 1040 or 1040 NR. And depending on their answer to that question, the other question that may display would be whether or not they filed a foreign tax return. So here I'm going to indicate yes, I did file a joint tax return with my current spouse, and I'm going to choose the continue button. At that point then, we are asking if the parent's family size is different from the number of people that were claimed on their 2022 tax return. So there you can see there are 2 options here, yes, and if they answer that, they would continue forward. If they answered no, then there's an opportunity for them to be able to tell us what their family size is. Here, I said that the wrong way. So if the parent's family size is different, then they get to tell us what their family size is. If their family size is not different, then they don't need to tell us what their family size is because it's not different. So
Right.
If they answer yes to the family size question, then you can see that they would have an opportunity here to provide us with what their family size is. We'll ask them a question here, and then they would provide us what their family size is. So I'm going to answer no, that the family size is not different, which means it's the same as the number of people that were claimed on my 2022 tax return. And then I would say continue. From here then, we are asking about how many people are in the parent's family will be in college. So the parent would provide their answer here, and then they would choose the continue button. From there, we are asking about some information from the parent's tax return. So you can see that on this page, we are only asking a couple of questions here in this circumstance. So we're asking whether or not the parent received the earned income tax credit. So I'm going to say no here. And then we're asking 2 additional questions. One is the amount of college grants, scholarships, or AmeriCorps benefits reported as income to the IRS. And then the other is the foreign earned income exclusion.
This is just a specific example of this demonstration, so it could look different for you, and enter whatever information applies to your family. This is the parent assets section, just like with the student. Any total cash savings and checkings accounts, the balance in those accounts, the balance in the current net worth of investments, including real estate, the current net worth of businesses and investment farms. And now, if you have to enter, let's say, your husband's or your wife's information, or whoever is another contributor, then you have to enter this information right here, just like with the student. First name, last name, date of birth, social security number. If they don't have one, select they don't have one, and their email address. That was pretty much it. Take a moment to review before signing. You can expand any section that you are unsure of, or if you left something to the end, you can go back and complete it. As you can see, the status for the student, who we saw in the first part of this video, it says complete, section complete. So all we have to do now is select continue, sign the FAFSA, read over the summary, read the little letters, should not be an issue. Select sign and submit. And this will take you to the confirmation page. Congratulations, the FAFSA form is now complete. What happens next? There should be an email that's going to be sent out to both the student and the parent. The student will receive a notification of processing. It takes 1 to 3 days before they process the FAFSA, and it's sent to the students' universities, the ones that they added to their list. It also says that the student will receive any communication from the universities regarding the SIE, and we're going to see what this looks like on the student's end. This is the congratulations page of the parent. The student's congratulations page looks a little bit different and actually includes the SIE number. That's what the form looks like for the student, Raya Tran. This number will tell you how much financial aid you could receive if you are accepted to the universities. It says when it was completed, the data release number, and based on the eligibility criteria, this student for this demo only may be eligible for a Pell Grant, which is another name for a scholarship that you do not have to pay back, of up to $6,000. So what happens next? If we scroll down, you'll see the same information that the parent saw. That is how long it's going to take to be processed. Check your email, obviously, 1 to 3 days for the form to be processed, and any information that you need to update, you will receive an email from the university.
The student can also track and manage the status of their form by selecting this View Status button, and that would take them back to the dashboard on studentaid.gov where they can view the current status of their FAFSA form. And that concludes the walkthrough of the 2024-25 FAFSA form.
So that is it for this video. That is how you complete and submit the 2024-2025 FAFSA form. It will look just like this, perhaps with some changes to the interface. Obviously, what we saw was just a demo, but if you are a student, a parent, make sure that you follow the instructions in this video. If you're a member of Best College Aid, remember that we will do an official demo and step-by-step tutorial with even more strategies on how to maximize your odds of winning aid and scholarships. If you'd like to learn even more strategies on how to create a list of colleges and how to look for and apply to the other types of aid and scholarships available, go ahead and check out the link below this video and register to watch that free training on the top secrets to getting accepted to college with scholarships. My brother and college admissions expert, Francisco, will walk you through each of these steps and make the process much more digestible. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that we can help other families who need to find information like this. And as always, let us know if you have any questions down below in the comment section. I'll see you on the next one.